The sun bathed the village in golden light. Children laughed and the market bustled. But beneath that calm surface, something was deeply, unsettlingly wrong. Because when night fell and the shadows stretched, they moved on their own, whispering secrets no one dared to hear. The village lay quietly under the warm embrace of the afternoon sun, every corner bathed in golden light. To a stranger passing through, it looked like a perfect postcard. Children chasing each other through narrow lanes, the smell of fresh bread wafting from a small bakery, and elders sitting on wooden benches, sharing stories and laughter. The field stretched in neat rows, tended with care by farmers who greeted each other with nods and quiet smiles. It was a place where time seemed to slow, where the rhythm of life was steady and unchanging. But beneath this seemingly serene surface, something was deeply off. The narrator, a newcomer or a returning villager, quickly sensed it. There were streets where no one walked, where the silence felt heavy and unnatural. Windows were shuttered tight even during daylight hours, and the occasional glance from a villager was sharp and wary, as if warning to stay silent. Dogs barked furiously at empty corners, and birds took sudden flight from the trees without any apparent cause. The village's peace felt fragile, like a thin veil barely holding back something dark. The most unnerving detail was the way the villagers behaved. There was a peculiar avoidance. Certain people refused to cross particular paths, and the market's lively chatter would hush whenever a specific shadow stretched over the square. No one spoke openly about it, but the fear was tangible, threaded through their polite smiles and stiff greetings. Even the children seemed different, their laughter sometimes cutting off mid-sentence as they glanced nervously at places no one else noticed. It was as if the village was holding its breath, trying to convince itself that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. The natural world, which had been a comforting presence, seemed tense and restless, like a secret waiting to be revealed. And the narrator could feel the undercurrent of dread, that quiet pulse of something waiting just beyond the light. This fragile illusion of peace was the first sign that the village's calm was a carefully maintained mask, hiding the shadows that didn't belong, the shadows that whispered in the dark when the sun dipped below the horizon. The village changed. The warm light that once hid its secrets vanished, replaced by a creeping darkness that felt alive. The villagers hurried indoors, locking doors and drawing heavy curtains. But no barrier could stop what lurked in the shadows. It started with subtle movements, shadows stretching longer than their owners, flickering oddly against the walls. At first, the narrator thought it was a trick of the fading light or a tired mind playing games. But the shadows soon showed signs of willfulness, moving independently, sometimes even ahead of the person they belonged to or lagging far behind. There were moments when the shadows twisted into shapes no human body could create, sharp claws, twisted faces, or sprawling tendrils reaching toward the ground. One night, the narrator noticed their own shadow behave strangely. Standing still in the village square, the shadow seemed to writhe and shudder, distorting into a figure that didn't match their stance. A chill ran down their spine as the shadow reached out, almost beckoning, before snapping back to normal the moment they moved. Fear gripped them tightly, but curiosity pushed them to investigate further. Elsewhere in the village, a terrifying event occurred. A villager vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a dark, flickering shadow on the wall of their home. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just a shadow, writhing and twisting as if alive. The community grew silent with dread, whispers spreading that the shadows were not just reflections, but entities in their own right, perhaps hungry for something more. The narrator began piecing together eerie stories shared in hushed tones. Old tales about spirits trapped between worlds, about curses that bind souls to shadows. But no one dared speak openly, for fear the shadows might listen. The tension thickened as the narrator's own shadow betrayed them, revealing glimpses of hidden truths and unspoken fears. It became clear that the shadows were not merely passive companions of light, but active forces, watching, waiting, manipulating. The village's peaceful days were an illusion, shattered every night when the shadows took on lives of their own as the nights wore on. The narrator's fear deepened, but so did their determination to understand the darkness that gripped the village. No longer willing to hide behind superstition and silence, they began digging into the village's forgotten past, searching for answers that had been buried beneath generations of fear. Old journals, cracked and yellowed, reveal fragments of a sinister history. Decades ago, the village elders had made a pact, an unholy bargain with a shadowy entity from the depths of the nearby forest. This entity promised protection from famine, disease, and enemies, but at a terrible cost. The villagers agreed to bind their souls to the shadows, cursing themselves and their descendants to live under its watchful eyes forever. The shadows were not merely dark patches, but living prisons, harboring trapped souls doomed to eternal unrest. Each night, they stretched and twisted, whispering of pain and betrayal. Those who disappeared were claimed by the entity, dragged into the shadow realm as payment for the village's prosperity by day. The narrator realized that the village's silence was a desperate attempt to keep the curse contained. Speaking of the shadows or trying to break the pact risked angering the dark force, inviting worse horrors. The villagers' fearful avoidance and strange rituals were not superstition, but survival tactics. Faced with this grim truth, the narrator was torn between hope and despair. Could they find a way to free the village from its shadowy chains? Or was the price of peace forever bound to this ancient curse? The story closes with the narrator standing once more in the village square at twilight, shadows lengthening around them. The peaceful day was a fragile mask, and the shadows waited, patient, eternal, and hungry sometimes. What appears calm and perfect on the surface hides dark secrets beneath. Ignoring problems or living in denial can make those shadows grow stronger. Only by facing the truth and confronting our fears can we hope to break free from the darkness that binds us.